to jump in to our PowerPoint here. If you're joining us, you should be a grantee, a current grantee for the fiscal year. And congratulations. We are ready to send you a contract any second now. So some of you may already have your contracts. Those of you who don't, you should be getting notification very soon that you have a grant waiting for your signature. And when I do a demo a little bit later on, I'll walk you through that process. What happens after you have officially signed your grant is that it will then go through state finance, which is complicated, but it will get to you. We've worked really hard with the state to allow us to do 80% upfront. So we will send you 80% of your grant award up front, and then the final 20% will be submitted to you once the final paperwork that you send in, including those receipts, is approved. The only exception to that is if you are a County 250 organizing grant and you are a governmental entity. So I know we have a county fiscal agent online today with us. That full 100% of the $3,000 organizing grant was sent directly to that governmental entity, and we still need that paperwork at the end, but the full amount was sent up front. That's the only exception to that rule. Everything else is 80% to the grant award. And we will be going forward with some site grants where we'll be working with escrow agents, but that is, I don't think there's anybody on there today that has that scenario. So let's talk a little bit about spending the people's money. We've got to be careful with the people's money, be as transparent as possible. So we do that through reports, and I'm going to walk you through some reports today about how you do that. You all will be responsible for a status report on May 15th. So May 15th will be the deadline, and you can submit it before that. We do like them closer to the 15th. So if you submit in February, I'd really like an update closer to the end of the fiscal year. But it can be, or the 1st of May if you want to. But again, but no later than May 15th, we need a status report completed in the system. And this is just a check-in. Where are you? Do you need any help? Are there any things that we might need to tweak in your deliverables or your status? And your timeline, and that's just a good check-in. And I need to have something in the file before the end of the fiscal year. Then sometime in this spring, we're going to actually reach out to you. And this is very important. The site visits, the system will automatically send you a notification of that March 15th deadline is coming. That's really a deadline for me and for the SC250 staff. So Mike, who's on there, might be assigned to come do a site visit. And a lot of times these site visits are either virtual or they're phone calls. These are just check-ins. So again, are we on target to make our May 15th status report? Are we on target to meet our final report by the deadline? And that will be our conversation. Again, do not stress if you get a notification about the site visit. That's on the staff to complete and reach out to you to set up when we can do that conversation. The status report that's May 15th is on you guys to complete, as is the final report. Most of you will be set up for a November 15th of 2024 deadline for that final report, unless you have in your application let us know that you need longer than that for your timeline, and you can confirm that by looking at your contract. So the parameters of your dates will be set up in that contract. So take a look at that very carefully before you sign those. As I said, these reports do have to be submitted inside the Discover SC Web Grants program. There are some of you online who are fiscal agent representatives. Those, if you're not already registered, we do encourage you to go ahead and get registered with Web Grants, and I can connect you then and let me know so I know that who you are and where you go, and so I can make sure you're connected to the correct grant and you get the same notifications as the program director does about these. But if the program director is doing the status reports, maybe you don't need to be notified. So just y'all between each other decide who needs to get those notifications and be tied to the grant in the system. The same goes for the contract. If you need to be the one signing, please let me know. If you're not already registered, you can go ahead and register, and I can make sure those are tied to the correct grants. Big, big, big. Save those receipts. At the end of the day, that final report is going to require that you include documentation not only of your grant amount, but also if you have a required matching fund amount. We have to have receipts in excess of that total. A lot of you may have mentioned a match that is not required. If that is not, you're not fulfilling that full amount, we can have that conversation as long as it's not a required match. But otherwise, if it is a required match, we need documentation of or receipts of some form for those funds, those grant funds, and the matching funds. Document those that proof of payment as well. That means if you're doing an ACH, which you can often do through QuickBooks, then there's a way to print that. You can black out what you need to black out. Or if you have a credit card receipt, that's the easiest. But also, if you write a check, keep a copy of that check so that you have that proof of payment. And we also need to document the deliverables in that final report. Read your contract, your grant contract, very carefully. The deliverables and the measurement of success were pulled from your original application, but there may be some modifications to that. We expanded our review process and we had more reviewers come in this year, and a lot of their questions that came up in the review process may have been integrated into requirements for your grant. And this may involve just more clarity on what kind of peer review needs to be done, or if you need to create a template so other communities can do a similar project. So make sure you're reading that contract. And if you have any questions about the contract, please reach out to us prior to signing. Create a how-to template, like I said, may be one of your requirements. So take a look at that. I encourage you throughout this process to take photos. So if it's an event, especially, but even if it's just a working group, take a couple shots of the folks working on the project. And also, if you purchase items for your grant, it's great to have a picture of those as well, or those in use. Save any tear sheets for any advertising. They should be also digital. They're called tear sheets, but they should be digital these days. You can have your advertiser send you a quote unquote tear sheet, or you can scan those in. That measurement of success. So there has to be a matrix to say, was this money spent appropriately, or did it have a result that was a positive? Do we want to repeat this kind of grant in the future? This really helps us decide that. And sometimes, it may fall short of what you intended, and that's okay. We just need to say, all right, here's how we tested it, and maybe we need to tweak this if as we go forward with a similar project, or take a look at it. So be very careful in keeping demographics if you can. This is especially important if you have events, if you have a generic age type period, if you're going into schools, what grade level was it? So keep some demographics if you can. Gather social media interaction, do some screenshots. You can also capture some data, Google Analytics if you have that for your website. That may be one of your deliverables is, and the measurement of success may be how many hits your event got, on social media. It depends on what those those measurements of success are on your contract, and just generic feedback. What folks said when they came to see the exhibit, or maybe it's a formal survey. It depends on what's listed in your contract, but be ready for those measurements of success and make sure your procedures include collecting this information. If you do need to change something, that's okay. We want this to be successful. We know that an application is a plan, but plans sometimes change, or just need to get modified. This could include a slight modification to your budget, the scope of work, or your timeline. These contract amendments do come up. If you have one, we encourage you to put it in well in advance of any deadline for a report. That gives us plenty of time to review prior to that. They do have to be officially approved by our executive director, but we do ask that and you can call us first if you have a question, or email us if you have a question about it, but you can submit a formal request for a contract amendment in the system. The budget allocations, not the line items, but the section allocations, should not change more than 10%. The final report will actually not let you enter numbers that are more than 10% different between sections. So that would mean supplies can't be shifted to administrative. So that's just the way it keeps up with it. And so if you do have that shift, let's have a conversation about it or submit that contract amendment and we can get that officially approved for you prior to that making a purchase. All right, procurement. So I get a lot of questions about what procurement policies you have to follow as a grantee. I will say that officially, the grants fall outside of state procurement. However, we highly encourage that you follow your fiscal agent's procurement policy. This is very important. If you don't have one, I have a sample or some guidelines that you can adopt one as an organization. And it's just really important to make sure you're following these best practices for procurement. And there's more information about that on our website support page. So getting that final 20%, again, if you are not a county or governmental entity that is the fiscal agent for an organizing grant, then your grant probably was sent to you as 80% upfront, or it will be sent to you as 80% upfront. The final 20% sent at completion of the final paperwork, including those receipts. This does mean that that last 20% is a reimbursement. So if that would keep you from completing your project because you do not have other funds, reach out to me. We can have a conversation about that. But we do hope that we can most of these be reimbursements of that last 20%. So it's demo time. So give me a second to shift gears here. We're going to stop our slideshow and see if I can get to online. And I want to make sure I'm still sharing the right thing. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. All right, so this is our website, southcarolina250.com. There is another website that's more tourist focused, but this is the one that you'll need to go to for your grant information. We have the SC250 grants page, which has information about our grant programs, of course, but down here, there's a couple things to look at. I want to mention this right here is the link straight to the program. So if you ever lose the link to the Discover SC program, you can go straight to there. You can go to our webinars page and watch this webinar or others. And we'll also have one in January because we're making some tweaks to our program, and I'll tell you about that. So if you want to apply to another one, I'll mention that at the end as well. If you need to make a one-on-one consultation, you can register and schedule that on this here. And you can even look at previous grant awards. I'm going to be updating that in the next month or so. It's most of that's last year. And then grant recipient guidance. This is a really important page for everybody who is a grant recipient. And so this walks you through step by step on signing your grant agreement. You'll also receive this via your email. This talks about the grant briefing that we're doing right now, the distribution, the 80-20 split. Here's that fiscal guidance section and a link to state procurement. If your fiscal agent does not have its own update, then you want to make sure that you have your own procurement policy there. Matching funds, this talks a little bit about matching fund requirements. Keep in mind that in-kind donations are wonderful, but they cannot be used for required match. So do keep that in mind as you build those receipts. Oh, and I do want to mention there is a link on here, and of course, I can't find it right now. But there is a link on here for a neat little tool that you can use where you can scan the receipts as you collect them, which is very helpful. One of our former grantees suggested that to everyone on a previous webinar. So we learn from each other. So here's the citation information. Verbal acknowledgement at events. We do ask that you acknowledge SC250 at those events. Print acknowledgement when you're doing advertising. And you can click here to download high-res versions of our logos for that. And we strongly encourage you to link your website to SC250 if you're a 250 group especially. Also, here's some verbiage for any like official publications, like books and other things that are going out to be printed, uh, usually larger events. Marketing, here's some pro tips on doing some marketing and some sample press release that you can click right here, that you can send out to your local paper once you get started on your grant progress, or when you complete your grant program. And here's a little bit about the status reports. And we have the when those deadlines are right here. And a step-by-step on a status report, a step-by-step on a final report, and a step-by-step on a contract amendment. So you can download those PDFs right here. Here it is. This is a recommendation. It's called camscanner.com if you're for keeping receipts as you go so you don't lose them. Some of you may have administrative overhead on yours that does have to be documented. There's a sample timesheet here. You can use your own though as well. Some of you have travel reimbursement as part of your grant. There's a sample travel reimbursement form here. And then there's a contact information for me, and this returns you back to the grants page. But I'm going to go back to the top, and actually I'm just going to go to this tab, and we're going to log in to the grant program, and I'm going to log in as my external user, and I'm going to sign in. If you ever forget your password, here's where you do that. And if you need to register, if you're someone who's not registered yet that needs to be able to do reports, you can register right there. And I do have to verify it. This keeps us from having duplicates in the system. All right, so when you get to your dashboard, again, this should look somewhat similar. This gives us our contract signatures here, and I'm going to find the one that I used. Here we go. So this is the one I'm going to sign. So that takes you straight to the contract. But let's say that didn't show up for any reason. You can always go to grants, and I have a ton in here because this is my practice and assistance user. So I'm going to find my Maxley, let's see, the play, this one right here. So I'm finding the right grant. And then you scroll down to find your grant components. And your contract is always going to be your second one under components, or it should be. Okay. You will not see two. You will probably just see the one that says approved, but obviously I've used this one before for training. So I'm going to click. Anytime you hover over something in Web Grants and the line turns green, anything on that line you can click on and it'll take you to that item. So again, it will give you your signature here, but I do encourage you, read this before you sign. We can't make changes to it after it, well, we can, but it's a little harder to do it after it's signed. Scroll down, and I particularly want to talk about section B. Well, A gives you your grant amount. That's the total. Here's the in-kind, not available, but it's the match amount for the budget will be here. Sometimes there's not one required. And then section B is really important. This is our deliverables, our measurement of success, gives us our time parameters and other specific terms. So this gets pulled straight from your application, but then we do make some tweaks, so please read back over it. So it'll say the purpose of your grant. This was your elevator speech question. So that'll be in right in there. And then the expected outcome. These are your deliverables. What tangible items do you have to produce at the end of the day? And usually I like to list these as 1, 2, 3, 4. So a lot of times you'll see them listed that way on there. And then we will say the grantee will keep in mind the following while completing the deliverables. Keep in mind that SC250 encourages peer review by the American Revolution and South Carolina experts and non-historian test readers during your writing, editing, and design process for interpretation, digital, or printed materials. However, SC250 may also choose to have a final formal peer review of the manuscript at their cost. So if we are requiring an additional peer review, we would pay for that and do that once it's submitted. We do encourage you to not produce anything until you have gotten it cleared through us, though. Well, any kind of verbiage needs to be submitted to SC250. Please include that review time in your timeline. So that's important to keep in mind before you go printing an interpretive sign. You're going to be sending that verbiage that you have reviewed on your end and send that to us so that we can get it. And we're going to try our best to have a group of folks ready to do peer review as those come in. All right. Any copyright materials developed in the course of the project will be owned by the grantor, but will be given the grantee a permanent license to use these materials. And we just want to keep this that's paid for public money needs to be in public use. So a lot of times a digital version of materials will be available on our website often. And then here's the success will be measured. So here are those other things that will be on that final report. Make sure you're capturing that attendance or demographics. These are going to be different for every grant, but here are some examples: attendance, media coverage, social media interaction, feedback from the audience. So this is a play, this example here. So that's the measurement of success. All work will be completed between these dates. Now, obviously, this is one I set up last year. Most of y'all's will say sometime in November through November 15th of 2024, unless you let me know in your timeline you have an extended version of that. Please remember that anything that happened prior to your award date, you cannot pay for things with the grant funds that happened prior to that award date. Now, on those award letters I sent out, again, I apologize for the delay on getting those to you, but you often probably saw me put a date that's earlier on those. That is the date that the approval happened, and that gives you your start date for when things can be paid for. So on your contract, this is the official where you're going to have that approval date through your end date when you say you're going to have that final report turned in. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions about that, please don't feel free to reach out to me. So please feel free to reach out. All right. So once you've reviewed everything, and again, reach out to me if you have questions. But once you're ready to sign, going to come back up, and sometimes this is off the screen, particularly if you are using an iPad or a phone, it does not work as well. I'll just be honest. Best is to use a desktop for this online program, because a lot of times things like the signature button will be off the screen. So click on your signatures. You're going to mark it as signed. You're going to type your name, and since I just put it in there, it pops up. I'm going to put my date. You do not have to put anything in the comments, but you can. And now it has moved from approved to executed. And I encourage everybody to print a copy for your files, but do the PDF first. Again, if it goes to the printer, sometimes it's off the page. So I often encourage people to do a PDF first. And once that comes up, to print it from there and save. You can download it and save it from there. This is going into Adobe, but you may just have another format to look at that. All right, let's make sure. Yeah, okay. There we go, we're back. Okay, let's look at other sections. After you sign that contract, it goes to finance. You get that 80% sent to you. And if you should all have a state vendor number that we went through in this process. If you don't, I can walk you through that. You can also set up ACH deposits if you don't have that already set up, so it goes straight into your bank account. And then you get ready for those status reports, and it's just coming down the line here, again, under grant components, status reports. And both your status report and your final report are under this section. You will not see this many in yours. I've been using this for lots of things. So keep in mind that you will probably just have two. One that says semi-annual, which is your status report, and one that says final report. I usually try to go ahead and put those in there for you so that the system sends you reminders. But if you don't see one, and you can also do status reports at other times. If you want to just document as you go, you can add a status report and you just say, is it semi or is it final? Give it a title and the date range you're reporting for. But you probably will have some already set up in your system when you get to time to do that. So I'm going to do a May status report. Here we go. This is the one I'm looking for. So this is my May status report. The line turns green. I can click anywhere and go into it. And this is very similar to your application. We're going to edit your status report. And then you're going to, you can edit your general information. And that's that same screen that we saw earlier when we were starting one from scratch. Okay. And it has a check mark because that section's done. And then you click on status. And again, edit your form. And it says test, test, test. That's just so I can put this in here. Save my form. If you would like to do an attachment for your status report or any report, remember that you have to save the ones where you're writing the text section. And because it's a different type of form, it actually, you have to save it before you can find those become available. So now I can go in and add a new attachment, select my file from my computer. We're just going to pick something at random. Let's see. I don't think I have anything on my let's pick a picture. Okay, we're going to put app. And then you do have to give it a title. And I'm going to save my file. And now when you scroll down, it's attached. So that is, you can do attachments. We encourage you to do attachments, but not required for your status reports. I'm going to mark that as complete. So once you're done and all the things are filled, it will give you a red note at the top if you don't have everything completed that you have to, the sections. Once you have these 2 check marks, you can then submit your status report. Once you hit this red button here, you can no longer edit. You can, even with the check marks here, you can still go back into these and edit as long as you have not hit this button here. And once I do that, the status changes to submitted. So you go back to your status reports. We'll now see that the May status report has been submitted. The final report's a little more complicated. I'm going to kind of breeze through it, and I'll tell you more about how you can go into it when you get closer in. There's sections. There's a narrative section, and this may be tweaked a little bit before. Again, some of this may be changing slightly before, but and if you have any questions, I'll always do an updated step-by-step if I do make changes to the reports. But the gray sections will be pulled from your application. This just helps you remember what you put in your expected income. I often try to update these to match your contract, but always look back at your contract to confirm your requirements for deliverables. The white sections you'll be filling in. So deliverables, template or advice for other grantees with similar projects, measuring success is where you talk about those measurements of success. Project detail, this is about promotion. So if you had any publicity that was done, that's that section. So again, gray is what was on the application and the white you're going to be filling out. This reminds you the timeline you put in your application. And then here's where you would talk about those benchmarks. Did I meet my deadlines? Did we tweak the deadlines? Why did we tweak them? And go from there. And here is our section on what the public was served. And this particularly for an event, but even for any other demographics that you have, any other projects, any other notes you want to include. And that's the section that is text driven. So I have to save the text driven sections before I can go down and find my attachment sections. So if you have an image, maybe it's a paper that was written, you can attach that. Again, search, description, save, and then you'll have a deliverable. This is publicity documents, any of those tear sheets from any publicity or a flyer that you created, and then any other attachments here. Please note, your receipts are going on a different section. So this is not where you add your receipts. And there are a bunch of times you'll see the same buttons. They all mean the same thing. So I can hit any, if I was completed, I could hit any of these mark as complete, and then it would take me back to the report list. So if you go back to the top and go to your report list, you'll see because I haven't marked it as complete, it's not showing a check mark here. So don't forget that on each one of these sections. Expenses, we've got the sections. This is where that change between sections, not the line items that you wrote out, but the sections. I'm going from supplies to personnel. That can't be more than a 10% change without making a budget amendment officially through SC250. So we would, when you hit edit, these are your totals for your sections that you put here. The total for the sections under your match, if it's required, you would have to list it there, and then you save it. And then this last section is actually where you attach your receipts. So you add a new attachment, description, save your file, and then each section, again, you're marking as complete. And then once you have check marks here, you would have a submit button. You click that. Again, once you hit the red, that would be the final report submitted. So that's reporting. I know it's a lot. I know I went through it quickly, but I want to remind you that if we go back to this page here, and when you get, because this will be several months out, if you will have a step-by-step for your status report that you can click on, and this will give you screenshots and everything to take you through that process that we just went over. So anytime you have questions, I really like this grantee page that you can find under the SC250 grants. Grant recipient guidance is how we got to that page. So it's a great resource. And I'll also send you some updates as well as those advance. As we learning through the system, we're learning a lot, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to grow our program and learn from what's going on. So I'm going to see if I can, there we go, share. We did our demo time. And I know everybody's busy, so I'm going to try to wrap up quickly. Don't forget, you can copy your application. Please, if you're going to do a new application, do not start from scratch. Copy that application and apply for another grant program. We are making some changes, so competitive grants are not available currently. We will be launching that right after the new year, and I will be doing some talking about some updates in our next webinar that you can certainly join us for. And the deadline for the next quarterly grant deadline is March 26th. That's going to be the big deadline that's coming up this spring. But we're looking to speed up the process. As I said, we're making some tweaks. So we're looking at having almost monthly deadlines to expedite trying to get this out to you guys faster. And we're working on our procedures and learning from you guys, learning from your feedback. And we're going to be tweaking our program a little bit. We'll talk more about those changes on Wednesday, January the 24th at 10 a.m. And you can register for that webinar on our website under the grants and then under webinars that we looked at earlier. And then just remember, you can always reach out to us. There we go. And well, let's see, let's go back one more. And you can also look at other programs. Just today, I got another email from the folks at the National Park Service. They have a semi-quintennial grant. They have 10 billion, 10, I guess a lot of money that they have to give away to the National Register site. So if you are a National Register site, or if you are eligible for the National Register, you can apply for a semi-quintennial grant, and we can help you connect to that. And it's a great opportunity. There are other organizations. If you're doing something that's related to the arts, if you're doing something where you have an expert come in, that's certainly humanities. So arts was described as doing, and humanities is talking about. So you can look at both of those programs. They have deadlines coming up this spring. Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, if you're looking at site development, is a great place to look. And Archives and History also have some help there. We did a Meet the Funders event back this fall, and you can watch the video of each one of those departments talking about their grants on our webinars page. You can click through to our YouTube channel and watch those. So I encourage you to do so. South Carolina Conservation Bank and the Department of Education, State Library, great stuff on the State Library website. I talk about all those in my section of the Meet the Funders. And then again, reach out to us. So we hope to talk to you guys soon. I hope everything's going well. We'll be glad to help you. We should have a new coordinator in the next month or so, who also might be the one who's reaching out for that site visit, quote unquote, site visit. And I also encourage you to add me and SCPRT grants at mail.webgrantscloud.com. The system sends you all kinds of notifications. I'm sorry, I wish I could keep it from sending you quite so many, but they're also useful. So make sure they're not going in your junk by adding that to your contacts. That does help with that. So with that, that's our update on and grantee guidance. Does anybody have any questions? And Mike, do we have anything on chat that we need to talk about?
No, we haven't had anything pop up.
Okay. And I know that was a lot, so don't worry if you have questions later, please reach out. But anybody else trying to unmute themselves that has questions? Okay, very well. Go ahead. Somebody there?
Yeah, it's Annie.
Hi.
The add to contacts that you mentioned, can you say that again?
So in your email, you can add a contact to your email. It does not guarantee, but it certainly makes it more likely that it will not go into junk. If you have that contact in your contacts, if you have that email listed in your contacts. And like I said, you're getting emails from me directly, but you'll also be getting emails directly from the web grant system. And you probably have already gotten some.
And what email address? Because I know I have the SC250, but with your name beside it, but I don't think I have the other one.
I'm going to send you guys a PDF of the PowerPoint so that you have everything. And I'll also send you some of those other links in a follow-up email so you can check that out. And I will make sure to call out that email because it's kind of long. So it's easier just to look at it. So, all right. Well, guys, good luck. Go forth and do wonderful things with your grants. We're super excited about all the projects. We are here to make it successful. We want to make sure that everything goes well. Do not feel overwhelmed. Give us a call anytime. So, okay. Thanks, guys. We really appreciate you. Have a good one.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Great
Bye-bye.
presentation.
Thank you.